we have, you're going to be in for a treat today because we have one of my favorite people in the world right now. And I'm saying this knowing that she's on live, so she can't really react. Um, but we
Welcome
have a really
everybody
special.
back to the channel.
Is that audio on your
This
end or my end?
That's my
knowing
end.
that
I'm
she's
getting
on
rid of it
live.
now.
Awesome, awesome. I'm glad we're professional. As you can see, Kim Augustine has joined us. She is one of my favorite people in the world because not only does she know what she's doing, she is just so incredible with people, great with relationships, and just a great friend in the I don't know how long we've known each other, but it feels like way too long. So we'll we'll need to we banter back and forth. So we're gonna mitigate that because this is a PG show. That we're not gonna drop too many f bombs. Looking at you, Kim, we're going to just be very, very on point, on topic about cold calling. But without going into your intro, Kim, how are you?
Wonderful. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for having me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I am so excited about this because anytime I get to speak with you, I learn something new, either about myself, about my business, about the topic that we're covering today, cold calling. You've absolutely mastered it and have actually done in depth training for our group. And there's just so much valuable information that you shared with our group. I wanted to make this live stream available to the general public so they had a bit more understanding of what a high achieving agent is doing in their business when it comes to cold calling. So that's what we're about. But before we go into that, let's take a few seconds and go into our 30-second to 60-second elevator pitch. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're practicing, how long you've been in real estate, and what Kim Augustine really is about.
Wow, in 60 seconds. Let's do it in 30. So, real estate agent here in Houston, Texas. I absolutely love what I do. I love family. Um, and just the thought of being able to give back, it puts me in the mindset of just really being humble in spirit and just sharing, right? I mean, there's so much to do, especially in Houston. I think there's like 35,000, north of 35,000 agents. And it's very few and in between that you'll find agents that are willing to share. So when you have like-minded people that have a gift for sharing, it's absolutely amazing. So no, just glad to be on the call with you today.
I love it. I love it. Kim, you're absolutely right when it comes to, be willing to share. Right, there's the whole bind. We're not going to get into this too much right now because that's not necessarily the topic. I'd much rather get into the meat and potatoes of it, but the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. I think that that's really one of the key differentiators between you and anyone else that I've run across, because whether it's a new agent that we're working with to gather on, or those agents that are a little bit more advanced in their career that they've plateaued or just are looking to get to that next level, you're you're sharing the strategies. You're sharing, hey, this is what I'm saying, this is how I'm saying it, this is working, this is not what's working for me. And many times at the rate that we're growing as a group, they're right down the street. So this whole notion of, there's enough for everybody, I personally don't subscribe to that mindset. I because statistically that's not true. However, the actual abundance mindset, I do subscribe to that. I do think that those that are pulling it, that are going to put in the work, there is going to be enough, right? Those are the people that actually go out and take risk, actually go out and put in the action. Um, I maybe that's me going down the rabbit hole. So let's bring it right back into the cold calling. Kim, tell us one of the mistakes that you're seeing, regardless if they're new, regardless if they're experienced, regardless of where they are in their career. What is something that you see agents do that is keeping them from being successful on the phones?
Just to feed off of what you just said, right? So going right into that with the answer of fearfulness. So that and the lack of consistency. So you can have it could be a free book. We could literally be giving away the secrets to cold calling right now. Whoever's whoever's on the call, we're going to send you a book, video. You just have to do it. It's the consistency.
I love it. I love it. So when it comes to the fear, I'll be honest. The reason that I haven't made my name in cold calling is because of the fear. And that's really the only thing. I do think that I have the capacity, but I'm not willing to, right? And it's either maybe I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session, but maybe there's the insecurity of, am I enough? I fear rejection, this, that, or the other. So that's where I purposely built my business differently, to where people actually call me and then I can be the jerk and say, nah, I don't want to work with you, as opposed to me calling and being a little bit more direct and gaining and earning that business. So on the lines of being inconsistent, what are some strategies? What are some ways that you've been able to implement some consistency in your business and actually getting up and making those calls, reaching out to those individuals that you have to reach out to because nobody else will?
So for me, Jaime, great question. For me, it actually started out of necessity. I removed fear with necessity. Um, Starting out, people talked about cold calling. They were like, "Oh, you could do this, you could do this," and the people that were telling me you could do it, they weren't doing it. They were just saying, "Hey, you could do this," and so I put in perspective on what needed to be done. Right, I needed to get in a happy space. I needed to get in a space where I had knowledge, where I knew what I was calling about, why I was calling. And then I had to learn other things in the process. But I replaced fear with necessity, and it kind of grew from there.
I love it. I love it. So I know it says Facebook user, but that's the reason I logged into Facebook to see it. It's Christopher. He's right down the road from you. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Christopher, but in next week's event, you're going to be there on Tuesday. So we'll make sure that you get the book. we'll make sure that you
Absolutely.
get, we'll
Absolutely.
make sure that you get the book. So, but anyway, I'll see you in Houston. That's going to be awesome. Look forward to it. One of the things that you mentioned really resonated with me about knowing what to say, right? And I think that that's a lot of where the uncertainty, where the fear comes from of, I don't want to call because I just don't know what to say. I don't know if I need to be saying this, be saying that, be saying whatever. And I know we get on this topic quite a bit, especially in our one-on-ones, about scripts. And there's an element to knowing scripts and understanding scripts and knowing their place. And there is that fine line between knowing your scripts, internalizing your scripts, and sounding robotic, right? I think
Right.
that if you get to a level of just superficial understanding of your scripts per se, I think that's when you do sound robotic because you haven't internalized them. You've scratched the
Right.
surface. Yes, you know what to say, but something you made very clear in the sessions that you were giving our agents was about tonality. So talk to us
Right.
about tonality, because there's one thing of knowing what to say so that anybody can read it, right? There's the script
Right.
aspect and knowing what to say there. But talk to us about tonality, because that's so important. And I didn't recognize how important that was until you brought it up.
Well, with tonality, what's really important for those that are going to engage in cold calling to know is that first and foremost, you can lose the attention of anyone within the first few seconds, right? It's about really coming across genuine. So when you're knowing your scripts, when you know the audience that you're attacking, when you make that call, you only have a few seconds to gain the trust of that individual, for that person to actually give you that additional time that you're needing, right? So it's going to be it's so important to know your tone, to know if you're going too fast, to know if you're too bubbly, to know if you need to just slow it down. You need to find your space and then to continue on in that conversations, because really you are asking for a person that has no idea who you are. They've never heard of you, they've never seen you. you're asking them to give you their attention for the next minute, for the next 60 seconds, right? It's all about seconds in that call. So if I'm chipper and bubbly and somebody's just lost a loved one, or especially if I'm calling probate, or if I'm calling uh, for sale by owners, there's a level when you know that they may already be frustrated because they're oversaturated with phone calls. So if you're calling chipper and bright and people aren't morning people, it's just you really need to know. So you have to listen in order to be in position to start speaking, to gain those next 30 seconds, the next 30 seconds, the next 30 seconds. I hope that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And really, you brought up the next point that I wanted to touch on because I have a hard time with the listening portion myself, where either it seems to me personally, I'm fully projecting. I fully caught myself out on this. I find myself in two camps. I let the other personality, if they are a person that really is not that, doesn't speak too much, I find myself speaking more than listening, because they're not giving me much to listen on. And if those individuals that are more of the speakers out there, I find myself, what in my mind in terms of content, what should have been a 5-minute call becomes a 50-minute call. Does that make sense? So I find myself in the whole knowing the appropriate places, or not that there's a right or wrong answer, but feeling that, all right, maybe now it's time to stop listening because they're rambling and going on, kind of like what I'm doing now. They're rambling and going off script. When do I need to step in and direct it more to where the outcome that I want? So whether it's a FISBO, whether it's a probate, whether it's a expired, there's an element of listening that
Right.
you're mentioning, and there's an element of, hey, I need to step in because I don't have all day. I have to call these other 20 other people. How do you balance that? How yeah, that's the best way of asking that. How do you balance that?
Right. So great question. So when you're in the midst of just listening, right? You're not listening so much so where you've actually toned them out or tuned them out. You have to kind of really go back in softly to take control of the conversation. If they've started talking about the dogs or the kids, that has nothing to do with the transaction that you're trying to create, the relationship that you're trying to create. I mean, it's good information to have, but now you're going to go back and just really dial it in. So just say, for instance, they're talking about the frustration of, um, the location of the children, getting them back and forth to school or what have you. It just has nothing to do with you getting to them in a physical appointment to either go through a buyer's representation or a listing presentation. It has nothing to do with that. So you literally go back in softly, interject and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, you know what? I really get it, and I feel your pain. My sister has 5 children, and I don't know how she makes the time for them, but as it relates to real estate or whatever that transaction is." So you really kind of just sympathize and go back to the business at hand. Show your empathy, but go back to the business.
I like that. I like that. Acknowledge and show that empathy aspect, that don't just gloss over it. And
No,
it's like, oh yeah,
make
that's
sure they
cool,
know you heard.
but let's do
Yeah.
this.
No, make sure they know you heard them. You understand there's a little bit of sympathy, empathy there. You really heard them, and now you're moving on because now they're seeing, oh wow, this person really did listen. They really got me. So they give you an additional 30 seconds. They give you, because you're just buying time, but you want to buy good time.
mm, Buying good time. That's a great. Hmm. I need to write that one down, Kim. You need to buy good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your time is precious as well, right? You're wanting to be inviting, you're wanting to be engaging, and how do you do that? By listening and still getting who you are and what you can do for them. So you have to make certain that, yeah, I didn't just spend, like you said, a 50-minute call and now I know about the in-laws coming in from out of town. I actually spent 50 minutes on a call, and not only did I get her as a client, but she gave me 3 more people to give a call to today. That's
Yeah.
a good use of your time. That's good time.
Right. Right. And I think where my mind goes, it's almost like I tell agents all the time, be protective of your time, but it's almost like I'm saying, do as I say, not as I do, because I tend to give more more time because I'm not that great with confrontation and all that fun stuff. But and this is a recent change for me. I think a lot of it happened after taking um when I think it was in November when I went through your program on the calling aspect, and you spoke a lot about mindset. You spoke a lot about being effective on the phones and preserving your time. I think around there, because it was the holidays. I remember thinking and being a specific phone call with an agent, just hearing about their dog, hearing about their in-laws, hearing about their other stuff. I almost got angry. I almost got
Well,
angry, and it wasn't at them. It was more of angry at myself of, I'm here on this eternal call that lasted over an hour. This is an hour that I could have spent with my family. This is an hour I could have spent with my business. This is an hour I could have spent with myself. Yet here, I'm sitting here on this phone call for over an hour just being resentful that I couldn't step in, and I could, but I didn't have the foresight, and that's why it resonated so well with me. Good time. It's because time's gonna pass by whether you want to or not. It's just how you're going to how you're gonna use it.
absolutely,
So
absolutely, and
that's
you have to remember in cold calling, right, or any time you're giving time or trying to get time, what am I actually using? What am I doing here? And where will I go with this? If you're giving yourself 45 minutes to an hour, 2 hours a day to do your cold calling, and you literally just listen to other people talk, how does that feed your business? You're literally now becoming a therapist as opposed to a realtor or, however you're using this cold calling system.
I like that. And I think you were leading right into the speaking about Osias. We were actually talking about Osias before we hopped on the call, because y'all have got incredible skill sets each that y'all need to connect offline, and not use our live stream time to connect. But anyway, so this is a great question, Osias. I cold call daily but have zero success. How do I improve? How much time should I commit to it? It's a great question. I think a lot of us have that.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, ask yourself when you're scheduling your day out. No, Cyrus, I know that you do a lot of video content. It would actually be hilarious to see you do a video on you cold calling. But let's stay on topic. I would say try to give yourself commit to an hour. You have to commit to it really takes me about 15, 20 minutes. I'm much better at it now for prepping to get ready for my calls. I don't just go into cold calling, I use the day before so that I can run, different things that I need to run to have adequate and updated information when I'm making my calls. But I also go into a routine where I scream, I yell, I put on my good music, and I really get relaxed because I want my feelings to come through the phone. And when I say that, I want to be in a great space. I don't want to be in a space where I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I don't want to even make calls. So I really take time to kind of just get in the mindset and really do it. So I would tell anybody who's new, give yourself at least an hour and 15 minutes, just so that you can have that prep time, right? If you haven't done it the night before, you really need to know what you're doing. Practice your scripts first, get as comfortable as you possibly can, and then give it a go. But don't stop. Like you gave it 45 minutes or an hour on Monday. Tuesday, you didn't do anything. Wednesday, you didn't do anything because you had no success on Monday. Guys, it's repetition. And trust me, you're going to find yourself, oh, okay, I actually need to stop calling. I need to stop. I've been calling too long today. I've been on the phone 3 hours because you actually got into a routine. You liked it. Put yourself on a timer, start that time from, yeah, and give yourself a true hour daily. Because you can't make that many phone calls, especially if people are answering, right? It's the
Yeah.
amount it's not as many calls you make, it's the touches you make. So No,
No, that's
good question.
perfect. As a quick reminder, feel free to connect with Kim. Her Instagram is listed there, and I'm also going to link it down below along with her other ways of getting a hold of her. So she's an absolutely great follow. One of the things that you brought up, and as you have questions, please feel free to drop them down in the chat. We're going to go for about 2 more hours. I'm so kidding, we're not. But drop any questions down below. Make sure that you have an expert on your hands, not me, her. Just making that clear. So make sure that you have some time to ask the questions that have been bugging you about cold calling. So one of the things that you did bring up, though, is something that doesn't only apply to cold calling, and that is the preparation in terms of getting yourself ready, getting that mind right. I'm a big follower of Tony Robbins, and he talks about that being your peak state, right? Getting into state. So, and he goes through an exercise, so I won't bore everybody with the exercise, but basically, whenever you are, especially when you're calling, and especially if you're cold calling, you're going up to battle, you're going up to war. So there's an element of preparation of yourself so you don't get the nose become your identity, right? So
Absolutely.
there's that preparation of yourself, of your mindset, of your psyche, to where I'm getting ready to receive probably 98% no's. There might be 1% that say yes, and the other 1% is just completely lost. They're just going to be neutral. So, understanding the reality, I think having that expectation up front and seeing it for what it is, not for what you think it is. It's the worst thing in the world. Everyone's going to curse me out. Everyone's going to. No, that's not going to happen. There's going to be a few people in between that are going to curse you out. There's a few people that are going to be rude to you. There's a few people that are going to do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, just having a clear, as much as you can, a clear understanding of what the reality is. Some people are nice, some people are going to be frustrated, some people, you're going to catch somebody in the worst possible time, you're going to catch someone in the best possible time. So just understand the reality, and then you're the one that chooses how you're going to react to that. Does that kind of make
Absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those
Awesome.
that are watching, here's the other thing. Jaime makes a very great point with preparing for rejection or preparing to receive those no's, right? So it's how you feed your own mind, right? If you're automatically thinking that you're not going to be any good or you're going to receive those rejections, that's how you're going to start engaging. So I say remove the fear, remove the doubt, and start saying instead of rejection, you're going to receive experience. And so you may get 50 calls where there were no's or hangups or people cursing you out. But that is 50 opportunities where you engaged, where you got the experience to now take on 50 more calls. So don't look at it necessarily as rejection, but look at it as fuel and engagement for you to go further.
I love that. I love that answer. One of our very own, Dan Ganator, a fantastic
Hey,
realtor out
Dan.
of Orlando. So check him out. Send all your referrals that way. On a cold call, how do you deal with the objection when someone is interested in selling, but they don't know if slash when they can purchase a new home? What are you telling people right now?
So that's an absolute fantastic question. So if they're not prepared, Dan, if they don't have a place to go, I would engage them more so. It's going to be based upon the exit, right? It's always about the exit. And if it's just financial, you have to know that you're not going to pocket any money. It's just going into the new transaction. So it becomes no longer emotional, but now it's out of necessity. So you have to remove, I think you need to engage them more so of where they need to be. And that goes back to listening, right? It goes back to really understanding what their plight is so that you can give them better answers. If you don't listen in the very beginning, then you can't get across that rejection. You can't move them from that space.
Yeah.
Does that? I hope that helps, Dan.
Dan, let us know what you're thinking there. That's something that happens a lot, especially in this market. I've heard different
Yes.
things such as Are you prepared to move in with a family member? Are you prepared to make some movements in between? Because to optimize your cash out, if you will, there's going to be some concessions, right? There's going to be some things that
Absolutely.
at some point you can't stay in that house forever. So at some point we're going to cash out in its full value, but then we need to have some interim plans if needed. Like, you are going to find a home. This is not going to be the issue. It's just that it could be a day, it could be an hour, it could be a week, a month, a year, who knows, right? So there's that
Right.
interim. So that's one scenario that I've heard in the past of, what are you prepared to do, basically,
Yeah.
right? So it's a problem that they're asking you, like, well, how am I going to solve this problem? You just rephrase it. Well, no, it's really your
Absolutely.
problem. So tell me, how are you prepared to solve it? Because there's options. Are you prepared to move in with the in-laws? Are you prepared to do a short-term rental? Are you prepared to do what else if you really want to cash out? That's one thing that I've heard in the past. Something else that I've heard from our mutual friend Justin Conoco has been, do you want to buy tomorrow's price at a discount today? Right? So
Wow.
it's
Yes.
where when you're selling your property and well, I have to go into this market and I have to pay a premium. Well, do you want to buy tomorrow's price at a discount today? And I thought that was beautiful, because there's that kind of an objection. It's not the direct objection that Dan brought up, but where am I going to go is effectively the objection, right? Like, well, homes are selling for X, Y, and Z. I know that my house is going to sell, but where am I going to go? Right. So I don't know. Those are things that immediately came to mind, and something that I've heard you, in different terms, share in the past. So I kind of wanted to interject that there. Unless do you have anything to add for that point?
No, no, Jaime, you hit it right on the
I love it. I
center
love it. I love
features.
it. Cool. Well, Kim, one final question, and then we can let you go. I know you're super busy, have a few transactions, and I really do appreciate, you making the time. I really, really do appreciate that. So I make sure that I fully honor it. You do have a program, a cold calling accelerator program, that I've gone through it. A lot of our group has gone through it. Actually, some of the commenters have gone through it as well. So tell us what the program does, what to expect from it, what's something that the cold calling accelerator that you created can do for that agent that's looking to get started with cold calling.
Um, well, thank you very much, Jaime, for having me today. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you're wanting to get started with cold calling, this program hopefully will allow you to, first and foremost, remove fear, get past a rejection, really find your space, and it promotes commitment within you for your own success. If you don't have those things, and you're not challenging yourself on a daily basis with those things, then you're just really not going to last. And so, hopefully, I'm really prayerful that this program will engage anyone who's reviewed it already, or who's looking to challenge themselves, that you're committed. It's not an all for all be all, but it is definitely the tools that you would need to become engaged and dialed in as a real estate agent, to start moving beyond fear and actually optimizing your business.
Boom. That would be a perfect mic drop if we didn't get another question in the chat. So we're going to have to hang in there for a quick second. How many calls do you make to a good client, is what Osias is asking.
How many calls do you make to a good client? Well, you have to identify first, what's a good client. That's a good client. And then I would say, however many calls it takes to move them from good to great to a true client, right? I mean, at this point, they're just potentials. They're just, um, and I'm gonna say, if you felt the connection, if they really if they were dialed in, if they listened, then you're going to put them on, I would say what we do, or what I do, is like this 14-day, and it's not all about calling. Now you're reaching them via text. Now you're reaching them via email, but you are going to stay in front of them within the next 14 days, 14 to 21 days, because you just had an intimate conversation with them. If they haven't moved to an appointment process with you, then you're going to stay in front of them for the next 14 days, right, guys?
I love it. I love it. Everybody follow Kim on the socials. You see her IG on the screen right now. And I'm also going to link her information down below if you want to connect. She's always happy to collaborate with you. If you have, she's out of the Houston market. So if you have any referrals, send them her way. But also, please, 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 she's one of the most giving people, and actually successful people as well. So you certainly want to gain her